You are listening to Healing with Haley, episode 25, Understanding Fear, the Snake at the Lake. Welcome to the podcast where it's all about healing, self-improvement, our brains, and living your dream life. My name is Haley Kirk, and I'm a life coach, mom, and entrepreneur, here to show you how to be the hero of your story. Welcome, you guys, to the podcast. Today, or I should say tonight, is relaxed. My house is clean, drinking some peppermint tea, and nursing my knee. So I have a story to tell you guys regarding the snake at the lake. And I want to preface this story with understanding fear. And fear is so interesting. It's, I think, biologically predisposed for us to constantly have fear for that survival brain, that for our survival, right? That caveman part of our brain that's always like trying to help us conserve energy in case a bear attacks us, right? So that survival part of our brain is very useful to keep us alive, but just alive. I don't agree that it's useful for our life that has become so comfortable and easy. Now let me tell a story. So, my son and I, my little almost 2-year-old, we go walking every day to the creek. I want to get him out in the sun, want him to get that yummy vitamin D, and just experience the wild. I know there's so many benefits for them going outside, and for both him and for me. And we're out there every day, and we have been for the past almost year that I've been living here in my home. And he's throwing his rocks, he's discovering twigs and all these things. And I'm looking in this creek that I do every single morning, and all of a sudden I see this slither, right? This movement. And I'm like, oh, look, there's a snake. Previously, I had seen one. Same area of the creek, but it just passed by, right? It didn't do what this one did. So this one's acting really strange. I see it start like twirling, and I'm not sure if it had like another snake in its mouth or a big fish, but all of a sudden, it's going on a parallel trajectory, right, across the shoreline. Now it's beelining, and it's going straight to the shoreline, and I'm terrified. Immediately, I grab my son, and I dart to go back up from, because there's a bit of a dirt slope to kind of get to this shore, this little bay of sand where Israel throws these rocks. And so I'm climbing up and I'm grabbing like our stuff, and I hit my right knee on a rock really hard. And I think while doing that, I hyperextended the left knee as well. So it was like a 2-for-1. But anyway, I go up, and my son gets really upset because that's like his favorite spot, and I'm just processing what happened. I'm like, oh my goodness, that was really scary because it was moving so quickly, and it was so close to us, and I just couldn't help but draw these conclusions, right? And I could have, right, been fearing these snakes coming at me the whole year that I've been here, and just in fear, right? In crippling fear. Oh my goodness, when is the snake coming? I need to be watchful. Like, I can't just relax and enjoy this beautiful view. We were relaxing and enjoying the beautiful view right up until the snake came. And I think honestly, this is how, because we can do all the preventative measures, but live in peace, right? Is danger around the corner? Possibly. But we don't need to worry until it actually happens. Isn't that interesting? I'll tell another quick story because this just came to mind. When I was pregnant with my son, I had this really big fear that I was going to die while delivering. While he was born, I would die. And the fear came from two stories. My mom almost died giving me birth because she was hemorrhaging really badly. And she had a condition where her uterus wouldn't stop contracting. And then while I was studying music in college, I had a piano teacher who had 3 kids, was on her 4th kid, and she died in the middle of the semester, and her sister had to take over for her and was just bawling. And I was just like, wow, like, it's kind of common, at least in my circle, that women die or can die from childbirth. And, I tried to do all these things, like the likelihood, and I did a bunch of research, mortality rates for mothers during labor. It's like, it's less, even more less, there's less of a chance to die from child labor than what's it called? Skydiving. Jumping out of an airplane and skydiving. So you have even less a chance of that. Like, it's just so uncommon, and they measure it by these specific units, and it's like billions of a chance, or millions of a chance, I'm sorry. And so it was like 36 or something like that. I should look that up. But anyway, the one of the golden nuggets I received when I did therapy during my pregnancy was, even though there's a possibility that something can happen, doesn't mean it's likely to happen, right? And she gave an example, like, your home, like the ceiling could come crashing in on you at any moment. That's a possibility, but it's not likely, right? It's a possibility I could die during my pregnancy or during my delivery. But it's not likely. And that really empowered me, because I was like, okay, I can do all these things. So what I did is I was like, I'm going to get $1 million life insurance policy for when I die, for if and when I die during my life, and it's going to go to my son, and he's going to be set for life. If I die, like, boom, I will totally do that. I could control that. And I also did like cord blood things. I wanted to make sure like his health would be okay. Any kind of weird diseases, like I had a plan for him for his future. So those were things I could practically do in the case that I died. And then I was left kind of to my own thoughts, right? So like what I could do, because I wasn't in the labor itself at that moment when I was preparing for pregnancy, I could kind of do it for myself, right? Like, okay, so if I died, then I would worry about it in that moment. Like if I was about to die, then that is the time to worry about dying, But what if I just lived instead of worried about dying? Because what do people regret the most when they're about to die? They regret that they didn't live, right? So back to the snake story. I could have been fearing that there would be a snake. And there's a it's actually kind of likely that there would be snakes there, right? Summertime, it's a creek, it's humid. That's where they live. I can take proper precautions, make sure I'm close to Israel, make sure I'm looking at the lake and I'm not distracted on my phone. But I can do all those things and still I could be fearful. I'd rather just choose or delay my fear for when that actually happens. Because then I'm letting fear run my life. I'm letting fear be my home emotion. Tony Robbins talks about this a lot, that there's these home emotions that we kind of all have, and they're the comfortable emotions. Or in other words, our go-to emotions. And I really love that idea because up until that moment, I had seen a snake before. I saw even the snake skins on the ground. I had people walking by me like, hey, be careful of the snakes. And it didn't faze me one bit. I was like, yeah. Until a snake had actually come towards us. That's when the faculties or the fear triggered the faculties in my body to act. And that's why fear is purposeful. It helps us to survive. It increases that adrenaline in cortisol to, whoa, hey, danger, boom, let's go, boom, 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 let's grab him, grab your thing, let's go, right? Emergency. But fear without those circumstances doesn't help. It pretends to be useful. So I want to dive deep into fear. The nature of fear, right? There's the rational and irrational fears. Is it rational to kind of fear snakes in my area? Maybe, especially because I have a young child. I kind of want to be on the whereabouts. Rational, here's the definition. Based on or in accordance with reason or logic. I'm sure there's a perfectly rational explanation. Now, irrational is not logical or reasonable. Irrational feelings of hostility. Unreasonable, illogical, groundless, baseless, unfounded, unjustifiable, unsound, absurd, ridiculous, ludicrous, silly, foolish, senseless. These are all synonyms. So, logic, right? It's interesting because even ego, my favorite definition of ego is identification with mind, right? You could be a completely logical person. You could create a logical argument to fear someone or something. And it could have a lot of sound, right? It could be a sound argument. A lot of times, the best question to ask is it true? Now, for the example of the snake at the lake, right? I didn't even need to go through a thought process because it was happening right then and there, right? Worrying about a fearful experience pretends to be useful, like I said earlier. So if I fear my son getting abducted, let's say, is that rational? Yes, because it could happen, right? Is it, and it's important, right? Why would I want that fear? Because it's going to keep me aware when I'm outside, keeping my home safe. Who do I surround my son with? Right? I actually like that fear. That fear I will allow in my life because that keeps me a very hyper aware mother. Now, I could let that cripple me and never let him go outside, never let him hang out with friends, right? The list could go on. I want to make sure I keep that fear in check, but I allow, good amounts of dosages that I'm comfortable with and that I have found to be all right and I'm at peace with. Those dosages of fear so that I make sure to protect my son and keep him safe. Because that is a sad reality of our world, right? That happens. So an irrational fear could be, honestly, anything that our ego creates. You could make an argument that it's irrational, or imagination, or future, right? Byron Katie says, there's all these, everything that the ego brings up to you is imagination land. Until it actually happens and is reality, then it could be the past, which in the past is also imagination because you're not witnessing it right in front of you. Such interesting ideas. And I also think that when we are in fear outside of a real threat, we want to kind of ask ourselves, what about this? So let me parallel this with my fear of dying during my pregnancy, right? Or my labor. During my pregnancy, I was fearful that I would die during labor. So a lot of the fear that I had came from, so I was like, okay, so then what? I love asking this question, then what? If I die, then why is that a problem for me, right? And that might sound silly a little bit, but hear this example out. If I die, then what? Then I won't get to spend any more experiences with my son. I won't get to see him, from what I know of death, right? I won't get to see him grow up. I won't get to raise him. The memories with him will be over. And that uncertainty, right, of the future was coming up for me. And kind of that fear of missing out on raising him, even now, it's kind of bringing up some emotions for me. That would be very sad, right? But because it hasn't happened, I don't even need to go there. I'm creating imagination in my head. I'm creating suffering in my head around something that hasn't even happened, and taking me out of the present moment of the moments I could have with my son right now, that he's alive and I'm alive. We're both alive, and that is reality. And I'm over here fearing this future that doesn't exist right in this moment. And so anytime we have a fear, I really like to ask myself that. Then what? I fear that someone will, break into my home. Okay, then what? Then I won't know, then I won't, how am I going to get my son? So it's like, it's this, okay, then what? Then what? What are you going to do? You're going to do everything you can, right, to protect your son. And so it's the then what's are okay. And then you kind of digest. You're like, oh, wow, okay, so that's where this is coming from. So the difference between potential fear, what we are imagining, And actual fear, what we're experiencing, is that actualization of reality, circumstances, and thoughts, right? So something is currently happening or has happened, reality, versus potential, right? Imagination world. And there's so much fear-mongering in our media, the things we consume. So it's understandable why a lot of people are afraid, right? Because fear is sellable. Fear is so... if you even look at like headlines, right? You won't believe this thing is in our water, right? You're going to want to read that. What's in our water? Versus something like, here is a great benefit for water. Fear is very... Our brains are wired to recognize potential threats. It's a great thing. It has its place. And also, we want to be aware of how it works, right? Our brain is censoring and searching for fear to keep us alive, which we appreciate and we value. However, that same censoring can drive us to madness and suffering. And so we want to just keep it in check. Yeah, so I love that I had this experience. I've had these two experiences where I had a fear of dying during labor. And then I feared during a threatening moment the life of mine and my son, or at least our safety, right? And it's just so interesting to know my body and mind will react the way I want them to in those moments, right? I am equipped to handle a threatening situation. And let's say maybe I wasn't, right? Or like, I could take self-defense classes. I could take weapon, like I could learn how to wield a weapon or something like that, right? Even in those moments, right? The idea of impermanence is a beautiful Buddhist ideology, right? Nothing really lasts forever. I would argue love is the only thing that lasts forever. But the idea of impermanence is so interesting, right? Like, my time on earth is impermanent. My body is impermanent. And it's honestly not really mine because I can't take it with me. It will disintegrate. It's mine in a sense that it's mine while I'm here, right? But it will go beyond. Like, I can't take it with me. I can't take my son with me. All these things will be taken away from me. All, my computer, my phone, nothing I have is permanent. It will either wither away or die, and it might sound pessimistic or dreary, but in honest, I actually get so much freedom and less pressure, one, to attain things, two, that everyone and everything in my life is there as long as it will be. And when it's time to go, it will go. And and of course we're going to grieve that part or that departing of something or someone that we held dearly, but it will be with us as long as it will. And allowing that kind of flow of things in and out of our lives gives so much peace. And in a sense, we can attach but also detach, right? We can love wholeheartedly the whole process. And we don't have to have one foot in, one foot out either. We can love that person when they're here, when they're not here. When tangible goods or things like food, sometimes I'm like, oh, wouldn't it be so cool if it regenerated? Or you could like recreate a Thanksgiving dinner and just like have it auto-populate like in Harry Potter. The dining halls, food just like pops up. But it's there and then it's not. And I think that idea is just so beautiful. And another facet of fear I really want to talk about is scarcity, or the lack of not having. And when we fear not having this, this impermanence concept helps as well, right? Because if we truly understand impermanence and the scarcity, right? Like, oh, there's not enough money in the world, right? Or I can't have all this money, all these money drama that we might have. That is yet again another misconception of that impermanence, right? Like, the money that I have it for now. And then it will leave me when it does, right? Earlier today I was listening to a podcast that was talking about how Oprah Winfrey, she was being sued $1 billion for defamation because of a comment she made about their product. And they asked her, like, I don't know if I could sleep if I was being sued $1 billion. And her comment was, I'm just grateful that I'm the type of person someone would come at for $1 billion. And I was like, wow, what an idea. And her position on money is so, I feel it has this impermanence or this lack of scarcity because she's allowed money to come in and out so freely, right? She is someone, an exemplar of really spending money the way she wants to, and having a lot of gratitude. And I think she's a really great example of that. So how do we take this story and use it practically? I think this is a great exercise that you can use, is to write down your fears. What do you fear? Do you fear that you're never going to meet your person? Do you fear that you're never going to accomplish this goal or this dream? Do you fear you're never going to have kids? Do you fear you're never going to have a home? Do you feel like you're never going to have your dream career? Do you fear you're never going to have the life that you want, or the lifestyle, or to travel? Whatever those fears are, write those down. And then ask yourself those questions, like, is this true? And then you kind of have to keep asking, like, okay, is this really true? And kind of whittle it down. Another question you could ask yourself, okay, then what? So you're kind of asking both sides. Like, it's kind of playing angel and devil's advocate, right? Like, okay, so yeah, let's say that never happens. Then what? Then what? Then what? we can still have these amazing, wonderful dreams without these conditions that we're putting on life. Like, I'll be happy when X happens in my life, right? Not to say we wouldn't want to try to achieve the things we want to, but we don't want to put conditions or condition our happiness around certain things happening for us, right? A really great book I love is called Loving What Is. And I love the precepts of just the title. Loving where I'm at right now is going to get me out of fear. Why? Because if I can love where I'm at right now, how much more am I going to love and progress towards what I really want from being in love with what is right now? I can end suffering by loving what is. I can quiet fear. A really great description of fear that I also really love is Tony Robbins. He does this super funny illustration of fear with a member of his audience. He pulls a member from his audience, and he's this big, tall, strong, burly guy, and this guy barely gets to his chest. And so he's like, "Hey, we're gonna dance." And so then he says, "Ready, go." And so he says, "Okay, now you lead. Okay, now I lead, and I'm fear. Okay, now you lead." So it's so funny. The audience was roaring with laughter, but it's interesting because that's exactly how we want fear to operate in our life, right? It's not going away, and we don't want it to go away. It serves a purpose, for some things. And when it's not serving its purpose, then we can take over, right? We can lead. We can help quiet the voice of fear. Like, okay, it's my turn to lead, right? And I also really like this imagery of where is fear if you were to have it in a car with you, right? It's like you're on a road trip, the road trip of life. Where is fear? Is fear in the passenger seat? Is fear in the driver's seat? And I would say for some of us it is, and for some topics, right? Fear is in the driver's seat. Fear is driving this journey, and we're in the passive seat, just letting it go on autopilot, and we're just not really taking control of our lives, or letting fear control our lives. And so I hope these tools are helpful for you guys. I really like to just approach my brain with a lot of questions, right? And anytime I'm like, oh, like I'm never gonna accomplish this, or this is just never gonna happen for me, I can always see like, okay, like why am I thinking this? Or, where is this coming from? And it's always fear, right? Like, and I'm starting my business, and one of the things I fear is falling, like truly, like, so if I were to climb high and then I just fall down from that high, like that is one of my fears. It's how much harder do I have to work to keep climbing? I'm a little afraid of that growth. Any time that you are pursuing a goal or trying to accomplish some metric or some habit, allow fear to be there. Right? Like right now, I'm even fearful, like, all my progress I made in the gym, right? Like it's gonna go to waste because I'm nursing these injuries, and last week I had this back injury, and I've been recovering from a sinus infection or a sinus thingy, and it's okay, right? Like, okay, so we get a little setback from the gym, right? So then what, right? Let's say I do lose all my progress. I lose my beautifully formed booty. that I worked so hard on. I did it once, I can do it again, right? I lost so much booty during my pregnancy, but I gained it all back in less than like a year or so. It's possible. I can do it. But it's going to take so much work. Okay, so we're afraid of the work as well. Oh, where's that coming from? Oh, my survival brain. Interesting. My brain doesn't want to exude energy because it wants to conserve energy in case I get mauled by a bear. Oh, got it. Okay. I don't live in the caveman days. That's not going to happen. It's okay. We can exude some energy even though we don't want to, but that's okay. So these are kind of the conversations we want to have with ourselves to get us in a mind space of fear being in the back seat, not in the passenger. Like, just quiet down our fears. I want you to challenge you. Write down those lists of fears. Go through the dialogue of, okay, is this my survival brain or is this my like empowered self brain? Which voice do I want right now? Which voice is helpful in this scenario? I'm telling you guys, your survival brain only needs to be activated in a state of emergency. Like, that's it. That is it. And we don't want to create an enemy with survival brain or ego. We just want to say, oh, that's where that's coming from. Okay. It's not really like me. The me that's empowered, that's, wants to be better. That's not me. And then it really helps us to get more clear and even propose or introduce more empowering, more stronger thoughts, right? I don't want to go to the gym right now, but the part of me that wants to go is the boss. And the boss has the final say, we're going. I know you don't want to, but we're going to go. And that's an empowering thought for me. It might not work for you, and you want to make sure that these thoughts are believable, that you're presenting to your brain. And really take time to journal, to put a thought download, to put a thought down in a model. A model is circumstances, thoughts, feelings, actions, results. And you want to fill out these models that will kind of help guide you to, okay, is this thought giving me the result that I want? No. Oh, okay, so that's good to know. What emotions do I want to have when this circumstance happens? When I see a snake in the lake darting towards me, I do want to feel fear. I do want to feel stressed. Yes, give it to me. That's going to help me get my son and me to safety. When I'm pregnant, do I want to be fearful? No. That has huge impacts on my baby's health, on my health. Baby feels everything I feel. Okay, so what do I want to feel? I want to feel peaceful. I want to feel empowered, educated, at peace, at ease, calm. Okay, what do I need to think to feel these things? Although I can't control whether or not I live or die, I have done everything in my power to give my son the amazing life that I want him to have. Oh, that really that empowered me to get those things done. Life insurance policies, cord blood storage, all that stuff, before he was born. It made me feel like regardless of if I lived or died, he could know that I loved him. And that goes to say, you don't have to do those things to show that you love your children. There could have been a plethora of other things I could have done for him. I could have written him letters that are, cost effective. I could have written him letters. I could have did a docu-series of, everything I loved about my pregnancy with him, These are things, when we get our brains out of fear, creativity happens. Gratitude happens, right? Gratitude and creativity and curiosity are great cures or diffusers of fear. And I really love those emotions. They help me get out of fear and into more empowering, less crippling behaviors like ruminating, sulking, overeating, over binging, social media or Netflix. So I hope these tools have been helpful. I know they will help you put fear in its proper place and understand fear and not make it the enemy. Guys, have a great night. I will see you guys in the next episode.